Since the very beginning of the war on Hamas, Israeli officials have insisted that they have no desire and no intention to fully occupy Gaza. But just as long, Israel's critics have insisted that occupation and displacement were always the intention and that time would prove them right.
Israel is not hurting, and they've already proven that they are more than capable of not only defending themselves, but annihilating their enemies to the point of genocide.
If you start drawing you want to kill the MAGA movement? Let's have American troops go over there as an occupational force, because this will end in tears, sir.
Right there, you had snippets of three big figures in the right wing, whether here in the U.S. or abroad, speaking out against Israel's planned occupation of Gaza, as well as on the case of Marjorie Greene, as she has been recently talking about it explicitly as a genocide. And we're gonna jump into a little bit more of what they had to say, starting with Piers Morgan, who, when he recorded that, the official plan was going to be the full occupation. As of right now, they've, at least for this next step, scaled it back, but obviously that's the direction that it's still moving in. So with that said, let's jump into what Morgan had to say.
But I think what we're seeing now is way beyond any self-defense. And I think the rhetoric that Wajahat talked about from Smodrich and these guys, very hard right members of his cabinet, who somehow get dismissed as not important, but are clearly hugely influential in this government, that they are talking openly about cleansing Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. That is ethnic cleansing. And if you now have tomorrow night a decision by the Israeli government to basically go over and occupy the entirety of the Gaza Strip, expelling 2 million Palestinians, that to me is an indefensible ethnic cleansing war crime.
And of course, that still looks like the plan, and they've been speaking very openly about it. Of course, everyone should remember that Donald Trump sort of was talking, before they were talking openly about it, Donald Trump was talking about the great real estate opportunities and all of that. And so with that in mind, let's just go to a little bit of Marjorie Greene and what she had to say.
Israel is not hurting, and they've already proven that they are more than capable of not only defending themselves, but annihilating their enemies to the point of genocide. And that's what's happening in Gaza. And Matt, the reason why AIPAC is attacking me is because I dared to tell the truth. Well, Matt, you and I are good friends. We served together in Congress, and you know that I have taken zero money from AIPAC. If you're under the age of 40, you have no hope for the future. We're $37 trillion in debt. People can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford rent. They can't afford insurance. They can't afford their bills. And we have HB1 visas stealing all these American jobs. And I'm sick and tired and fed up with it. So if AIPAC, who donates, by the way, to more Democrats than Republicans, as a matter of fact, they're all for Democrats, but they do donate to Republicans as well. But listen, if AIPAC wants to come after me and accuse me of betraying my American values, AIPAC, you know what? You can bring it on. I am totally ready for this. And this is a fight that I will fight, and I will give it my all.
Now, I don't know for sure if the debt figures that she cited there included the $4.5 trillion that she just voted for to give tax cuts to billionaires. But other than that, I do agree with much of what she had to say there. And we can eventually get to Bannon. But look, much of the elected Republicans do agree with Donald Trump, who will say and do, in this case, seemingly anything that Benjamin Netanyahu tells him to do. But as was represented in those clips, there are some influencers and some elected officials on the right that do disagree.
Yeah, so should AIPAC be a foreign lobby? Obviously, it's the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, okay? Democratic majority for Israel. So look, and this isn't just about Israel, it applies to every one of these type of organizations. I remember growing up, there was a Congressman, Stephen Solars, go around to all the Turkish events, and he was considered friend of Turkey, right? And then I was talking to my friends who are families are originally from India, and they're like, Stephen Solars, he's also friend of India, right? So so these guys go around and they collect money from folks who are American citizens, right? But what is the intent of it? Did the Turks who gave money to Stephen Solars, was it so that he could defend Norway or freehold New Jersey? Well, no, it was to represent Turkey's interests, right? And India's interests. And AIPAC's job is to represent Israel's interests. But AIPAC goes further. I don't know if all the groups do it, and then we should look into all the groups. We should be fair about each of the countries, et cetera, right? But AIPAC coordinates with Israeli government officials. Then it's obviously a foreign lobby. obviously. The only reason why it's not because all the politicians take money from AIPAC, 400 out of the 435 members of Congress. So those 400 go, no, I don't think it's a foreign lobby. I think they should keep giving me a lot of money. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, all right? So that's the only reason we don't have that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether you like it or not, is 100% right about that, in my opinion. On Bannon, he's right that MAGA is splintering, and if you say ground troops, they're gonna be over the top furious. And that's not even negotiable. I don't know why they keep saying it. They brought it back. Now, again, America's talking about, well, obviously some Israeli troops and some American troops. No, not obviously, and it's not gonna fly. So MAGA will push back so hard on that, I would be shocked if it happened, okay? But what's not going to get enough pushback is endless money, infinite money to Israel. Oh, you'd like to do an occupation, you'd like to destroy Gaza City, you'd like to take Gaza, you'd like to starve them to death. No problem. How large a check would you like us to write? And that, of course, has to do with AIPAC. But guys, look at this. Now you've got a real right-wing rebellion against AIPAC, Israel, etc. One that clearly did not exist in any significant way before. I know some on our side are still denying it. I find that unbelievable. Well, so wait, why are Steve Bannon and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz all talking about how Trump shouldn't back Israel in the way that he's doing if there's no rebellion from the base? What, is Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz decided to become bleeding heart liberals overnight? No, they're reacting to their voters, to people and their audience going, no, we don't want this. We don't want to spend the money anymore. And now you got to give them a little bit of credit on this. Now they're saying, no, this is morally wrong. And this is like one of the most encouraging things I've seen in the tiny silver lining in an otherwise very dark cloud, where they're saying to their own voters and viewers, if you're a good Christian, if you're a good person, if you have a good heart, you shouldn't want to kill those Palestinian children. I mean, in my lifetime, any American politician saying don't kill the Palestinians, I'd never seen it before. The first guy who spoke up was Bernie Sanders in one of the presidential debates, and he treated Palestinians as if they were human and not just terrorists. And I was like blown away by it. We were covering it live, and I'm like, oh my God, what a hero, what an unbelievable hero. And now people on the right wing and the most extreme right wing going, you know, they are human beings, they are children, we shouldn't be paying to kill them, right? So that's a great development, although some maniacally think it's not happening. And the New York Times, by the way, is saying to Netanyahu, no, we're not gonna apologize for talking about you starving children, because you did. Israel has starved 96 children to death so far. So look at the New York Times and Steve Bannon and Marjorie Taylor Greene agreeing. So it's amazing times. Mark.
Well, the truth is undeniable. I mean, you just said it, and you stated starkly. And AIPAC is a lobby group, and you're allowed to lobby, and it's awful. And I would have all of these lobbyists put them in the same basket and ship them out. I just, as you know, and one of the things I respect about TYT is the work done to try to get money out of politics. And Bob Menendez took money from Egypt and Qatar, and Eric Adams, made his own deal with the government of Turkey, whatever. It goes over and over and over again. And these are despicable people. We're talking about Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we're going, wow, they have one morsel of truth and humanity in them, and no one can disagree with what they've said. I hope it's coming from the place that of humanity, but it doesn't really matter. They're on the right side of this. Sadly, a lot of the support for what Cenk is talking about, the money and support of Israel, comes from the evangelical right, and that is what makes MAGA Nation such an interesting in a negative way place, because it's a coalition of this hard right Christian neo-fascist crew and these MAGA people who don't want to get involved in a lot of what's going on in the Middle East. They're sort of isolationist, and somehow they have to broker a deal to get Trump the support he needs and to get the right wing of America the support it needs. So I see strange bedfellows here, Cenk and John, but certainly one of the supporters, and it's a big coalition, is these neo-fascist Christian right supporters of Israel.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add one quick thing, or two quick things to what Mark said. I agree 100% with everything Mark just said. I'll add on top, Mike Huckabee was asked the other day about Palestinians being shot waiting in line for food. And Mike Huckabee is one of those lunatic evangelical Christians who believe that Jesus needs to come back to Israel and murder everyone. And so when they asked him about it, he went full Orwell and he's like, there's no one being shot in Gaza. Oh, there's no one dying in Gaza? Oh, that's a new one. That's a new record-breaking lie. And that he's part of that lunatic evangelical fringe, right? There used to be a much larger crowd. They're not as large anymore. And the isolationists are beginning to take over the Republican Party. That has some downsides, but in this case, it's a huge upside. And speaking of silver linings, last one is, so I think that AIPAC's extreme behavior is going to reveal to a lot more Americans, oh, all the politicians are listening to just the donors. AIPAC happens to be a donor, right? Happens to be a special interest, but so is Big Pharma, Big Oil. I've said it a million times, right? All of those giant lobbies. And I can literally see it going one by one, like light bulbs going over their heads. That part's not literal, okay? As I'm reading on X and social media, et cetera, people going, oh yeah, maybe that's why we can't negotiate drug prices. Of course that's why. Because the lobbyists and mainly it's corporations, this happens to be foreign governments, but of all these governments and all these corporations totally own our Congress. And if this tragedy leads to the American people waking up to that in mass, well, it's something, like I said, a silver lining might come out of it that's very valuable. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.